Greetings, good people. Welcome to my YouTube channel titled The Diasporic Tsotsi. I'm an author from South Africa. In this channel, we'll be discussing the merging of the three disciplines of postcolonial theory, critical theory, and psychoanalysis. My work connects the post-apartheid context to the black diaspora in a global context. As Africans, the traditional political ideologies have characterized our cultural identities as lacking the propensity to participate and contribute to the conversation about philosophical emancipation from colonialism. My discourse devises and discerns a philosophical ethic in the culture that contradicts the facade of ideologically defined emancipation, an ethic defined by impersonal values like competition. It calls it Hysteridence, or mutually contradictory ethics that are united by historically defined developmental values but are divided by the manifestation of the cultural operations of the system. First, we will define the three disciplines and articulate how they have been contributed to the literature historically. Postcolonial theory is a multifaceted approach that examines the impacts of colonialism on both the colonizers and the colonized, exploring the complex power dynamics that emerge during and after the colonial experience. At its core, the theory seeks to challenge and disrupt the dominant narratives established by colonial powers, emphasizing the importance of understanding diverse perspectives and the voices of those historically marginalized. Next, the philosophy of critical theory. Critical theory is a philosophical approach that emphasizes the manifestation of the organic context. It is an approach that asks the question why society functions in a dispersed and an impersonal way, and who gets to pay this price. It bases this approach on the fact that society has an historical beginning and it is mutable, and how that has impacted the pre-colonial context here in Africa, for example. It emphasizes a normative orientation of the social context, human emancipation, and egalitarianism. Now comes the discipline of psychoanalysis. Psychoanalysis is a clinical therapeutic approach. According to Julia Kristeva, one of its major contributors to the literature, it seeks to make a reconciliation between the individual and the collective unconscious by focusing on the symbolic implications of language, spirituality, and cultural expression. This discipline, utilizing semiotics, is able to establish a measure of balance between the individual and the collective unconscious. Depending on the practitioner, one is able to connect the individual to what in this discipline is called the symbolic order or the father. According to Kristeva, humans are inherently imbued with the desire to connect to the father, in that our ontological and individual experiences are separate from the father as much as they are separate from each other. So in the manifestation of our lives, we have an innate desire to go to reconnect with the symbolic order, and language is one of the vehicles with which to do that. Now, the goals of this work is to demonstrate the significance, for the first time, merging these theoretical disciplines into a discourse that articulates the mutual contradictory ethics that critical theory has demonstrated are defined by impersonal and historically isolated traditional ideologies that emphasize individual and societal competition, culturally sanctioned anxiety, and a distant relationship with the symbolic order. What's the value in merging these three disciplines? Because at the heart of traditional ideologies and their logic, the context of the colonized can never relinquish the yoke of colonialism. Critical theory helps highlight the logic of psychological oppression as a didactic facility. Postcolonial theory helps elucidate the pragmatism of multiple perspectives, while psychoanalysis helps concretize the inherent nature of individual emancipation. Now, this discourse demonstrates that emancipation is embedded with the propensity for reconfiguration of the ethics of competition, and allows for the possibility to rethink them in terms of understanding that all societies are operating with the same developmental ethics and are driven by the same desire of reconnecting to the symbolic order. It is traditional theory that emphasizes division, spiritual and economic lack, and a non-connection to the thread from the pre-colonial context. In South Africa, for example, there is a lack of a unified middle class, even though the country is mainly underpinned by a diverse urban community. This is contradictory in the sense that the struggle was defined by goals to curb this ethic and alter the facade of the social and competition spectrum in order to establish a beginning of a new social order. My discourse is describing the current dispensation as hysterical or mutually contradictory. We are in a context where we agree with the unified paradigm that is characterized by the end of apartheid and its economic limitations, only to be subjected to a combination of new and old political corruption, communal isolation, and pressures on the individuals, didactics and normative connotations that define the apartheid experience. Writing this work 20 years into this new dispensation, my work was published in 2017, beset by personal struggles. 9 years since its publication, I am still struggling to get my work into South Africa, for example. Bureaucracy, impersonal and competition ethics in contexts that have been established to relinquish the yoke of apartheid. But still, these ethics from the previous regime are still continuing. The logic and traditions of psychological oppression